Hey, what's up everybody? StangDadGT here again. I'm hoping to bring you another how-to video. This one is definitely going to be involving that guy or that girl over there. So we got a package in today from Steeda. So let's go ahead, open it, see what we have, and then we can go from there. Alright, let's take a look. First off, let's give Steeda a shout out for getting me some cool stuff for the garage. Now that is pretty cool. So again, thank you to Steeda for the garage banner. I'm thinking I'll probably put it over by the Mustang over there. Alright. So we have some shocks and struts. So you can see here, these are the Steeda Proactive. This I believe is one of their newer shocks and struts. So they used to have the Pro Action, and these are the Proactive. Again, I daily drive this car. So my goal is actually to give myself a little bit smoother of a ride. Maybe in the future, you know, use something a little bit more drag oriented, but definitely want to smooth it out just with the daily driving. It's a little bumpy. So let's go ahead and open the rest and take a look at them. All right, and here's our other one for the front. So I am excited to get these guys in, hopefully this week. Just so you can see what the part number is. We have 555-8421 and 8422. So it's the full shock and strut assembly. So we will work on doing that this week. Goal is to try and do a how-to video for you. We've already done the springs. We're actually running the Steeda Sport Progressive, so I will put a card up for you to check out that video. It wasn't really necessarily a how-to video. So with the install of the shocks and struts, since we're gonna have to take the springs off anyway, maybe I can do a kind of a kill two birds with one stone and show you one side on the front, one side on the rear, for how to do that install. Again, it's not something I've ever tackled myself. I kind of have an idea of how to do it. So we will see my buddy Jake ZipTie_ST, who you saw in my last video, which again I'll put a card to, which was how to paint, correct, and ceramic a car. He's been in other videos as well. Good buddy of mine, knows how to work on cars. He's good about teaching me some things. So you will see him later in this video, and he will kind of walk us through doing the install. So I hope you enjoy this video, can learn something, and I will definitely give you some feedback on what I feel with these once they're installed. Thanks again for tuning in. Hey, what's up guys? This is a first time doing a driving video here. So what I wanted to do was, one, they're doing some construction in the front of my neighborhood, so I'm going out the back, and it's quite bumpy here. So I wanted to get some first-person views of my stock, well, somewhat stock suspension, right? So I'm running the stock PP1 shocks and struts, but I am lowered on you know, the Steeda Progressive springs, which I love. But again, those aren't going to necessarily help with smoothing out bumps and things like that. So I just wanted to kind of, as I went through the back neighborhood here, to see how the camera picks up some of the bumpiness, then obviously install the new Steeda Proactive shocks and struts and do an after video. So we'll have to see how it turns out. But even as, actually I was taking my daughter somewhere, and as we went out the neighborhood here, even she made a comment that it's very bumpy. So fingers crossed that we will be able to definitely smooth things out with these Steeda shocks and struts and see how they go. I don't know with the way I have the GoPro looking right now. You can use speedometer or cluster or whatnot, but I'm going somewhere between 25 and 30 as we go through here, just to give you an idea of how fast we're going. But yeah, so I am pretty much through most of it, back into about to enter into some of the smooth part of the neighborhood. So I will end this portion here, and hopefully the next one you see will be with the new Steeda shocks and struts installed. What's up, everybody? It's surgery day, as I'm calling it here. We are with a familiar friend here, Jake, ziptie_ST, doing shocks and struts. So we are looking at the front passenger side right here. Obviously we got the wheel off. I had some spacers, those are off too. So the first thing we're going to do is pull off the caliper, the rotor, and then the dust shield that's behind the rotor. So those are going to be your first steps to getting access to the strut.
And for the caliper, it is two 15mm bolts. And then for the dust shield, it is three 10mm bolts.
Alright, so now that we have the caliper, the rotor, and the dust shield off, you can see the caliper is just resting right here. The two bolts to get the caliper off were on the back, so you saw Jake had to go from behind. To get the rotor off, we just use this little rubber mallet here, and you just kind of hammer it around until it breaks loose. And then the dust shield was pretty simple. There's just 1, 2, 3. I think they were 10mm bolts. So next we
have these two. The front is a 24mm, and you're going to back it off until it's flush, and then you're going to take your mallet and you're going to hit them out, because these bolts are threaded in, so you have to punch them out with a mallet or a hammer.
You can see there's two of them right here. An important thing to note that Jake was saying is you're going to back out the nut so that it's flush with the tip. It gives you more of a surface area to hit, because you don't want to bend this, the tip of this, otherwise you're not going to get it back in. This can be probably one of the more difficult parts of this process, is getting those two out. But sometimes it's just, you got to throw your purse at it, as we say. Also, once these two bolts are knocked out, we have the end link back here that's onto the sway bar. So we will back out this nut right here. You don't have to remove anything from there, just from this top portion right there. So as you just saw, again, these two threaded bolts here, not the easiest to get out. Sometimes it does help to jack up and get a little bit pressure on where the rotor goes there on the brake system, and it gives you just enough to push that bolt out a little bit, and then let off the pressure to finish pulling the bolt all the way out. So that your next steps, again, we need to pull out the brake line here. There's just little pull tabs, and then from there, move up to the top of the engine bay, remove 3 nuts here for the system to drop out. So our next part here, now that we have it all out, and I'll put a card up in the video. As you can see here, these are the Steeda Sport Progressive springs. I've had those on the car for probably almost a year now. So you need a spring compressor. There's 2 parts to it here. And then you're going to take the spring off of the stock one and put it on to the Steeda one here. So we'll talk a little bit how to do this process. This is probably one of your more dangerous parts. If you don't know what you're doing, I don't recommend just trying to figure out on your own, because compressing these springs can be a bit difficult and can also be a bit dangerous. So definitely, don't hesitate to ask a friend, or these are kind of more manual spring compressors. I'm sure you can find a local shop that would have like a wall mounted one that makes it a lot easier. All right, so we're putting the spring compressors on. It's important to not put them next to one another. You pretty much want them as much opposite as you can to create even pressure on both sides of the spring. So then once the spring compressors are on, you can see we used some pliers. I couldn't find vice grips to stop it from spinning. Then it was a 22mm nut to remove the top here. Alright, so now that we have the spring off, we're going to show a little bit about how to install the bump stop and all the necessary accessories and parts onto the new shocker strut. Alright, there you have it. Everything was transplanted to the new one. So next you put your spring back on, and you want to make sure that you're aligning it properly into this little guide. And you want to make sure you're also putting the spring on the way it came off, which with your compressor still on it, you're probably not going to be able to get them on upside down. So to get the cap back on, you have to line everything up so that you can get this nut on. Second pair of hands does help also. And then from there, it's pretty much opposite of what we did to take it off. We're gonna hold this in place and tighten that down. All right, so once you get everything installed on your new shocker strut, you're gonna do everything in reverse order. So obviously your 3 screw heads here, you're gonna line up with your holes up top. And then once those come through, we'll put the nuts back on so it doesn't fall through. Yeah, you can let go. So again, in reverse order, what you're going to do is put your end link back in, and then you'll reattach your ABS lines. They are not your brake fluid lines, just FYI, as I said earlier. And then you'll put the brake system back in with our 2 lovely 15mm bolts that are not necessarily the friendliest to put in. You'll put your dust shield back on, rotor. I happen to have spacers back on, and tires, and then drop it down. We'll show you one of the readers. All right, now that the hard part's done and both of the fronts are in, we get to move to the easy part, the rears. So there's only actually a couple things you need. You need 15 millimeter and what was it,
18 millimeter?
An 18 millimeter. So there's actually only 4 bolts you're gonna take out. You have your 2 18s, sorry, up top here. And then you have 2 15s, kind of hard to see on the bottom here. Right underneath here holding in. And then
you'll need your flathead screwdriver for your top head. When you remove these 2 bolts, you're going to slide this guy right here and basically just go back and forth until the whole thing pries itself forward.
Yep, so it's pretty straightforward. And then you know, you'll take off a few of the parts, the top hat and bump stop off of here and put it onto the Steeda one and then put it back together. Alright, so once you get it off, you pull off this cap, loosen this bolt, and then when you assemble for the Steeda, there's a nylon washer that will go on first. It'll sit in here. Then your factory bump stop will go on. Then you'll put the mount. Then it goes to this circle spacer and these 2 nuts. And that's how it goes. Alright, as you can see, Jake got it all assembled here. So next you're going to basically just put it back into place.
So the easiest way to do this is what I've just found out. So to take it out, without using your flathead, you're actually just going to take your thumbs and push this thing down off of the little brackets right here. And that's what holds it in place. So instead of using the flathead to try to pry it around, just push it down. So untighten the top heads first, and then push it down, and then pull it, and then you'll have your 2 bolts. So we're going to do it the same way this way. So we're going to tighten the bottom, and then push the top down, and then line it up with our brackets up top, and then tighten everything down.
All right, so we are all done with the car. It's actually been probably a few hours. We went to go take just a quick test. I know I want to do first person view, but I just want to make sure everything was installed and done properly. So, I mean, as far as the stance goes, it's really going to sit the same. None of that changed. But check this out. I'm sitting at a stoplight after I got out of the neighborhood, and bam, the guy rear-ended. All right, I don't know how well the camera's picking it up. The exhaust over here on the driver's side is loose. Obviously there's some break in the paint and some damage here. I was probably going about 20, or I was stopped. The guy was probably going about 20. Pulled the bumper off some here. But here's the kicker on it. As I got out of the car, the guy backed up and left. So it was a hit and run. It was like a CLK 550 Mercedes SUV. It was gold. I don't know. It was probably like 2015 or so. Don't know why the guy thought he'd be able to get away from me. Obviously, I ended up chasing him down, got his plates, everything. Even told him to pull over. He would not. So I ended up going to the police station where it happened, filed the report, and we're gonna go from there. The police already found the person and the people who have the insurance on the car. So it'll get taken care of. So that was a little bit of an adventure for a day of install. The sucky thing is there's a really cool car show this weekend. But to finish up my day today, before I clean the inside of the car, I wanted to show that I got the banner up. Just again, thanks for Steeda for throwing in that little bit extra for a plain garage, trying to build this thing to be a pretty cool garage for cars, working in it. So this is the first of many banners and Mustang, car, Ford related things, whatever it might be. So thanks for tuning in. Hey, what's up everybody? So I know you just hopefully watched this install of the shocks and struts and heard about the whole accident thing. Well, fast forward about 2 months, I'm finally finishing this video for a couple of reasons. So let's start with the car's fixed. It's dirty right now, that's okay. The bumper, they did not replace it. They went ahead and sanded it down, painted it. Looks really good. Came out just fine. They did replace this rear valance as it got some nicks and some like indentations on it. So that was replaced, and then I got a new deck lid panel as well. And then we just transplanted the GT from my other one onto there, since that was actually the same shop that did all the work, was the shop that originally painted this. So they repainted it for me while we were at it. And at the same time, can't really tell, but I did PPF on this rear deck lid. My previous one was ceramic coated, but it's still scratched, as I'm sure many of you know. You breathe around it and it scratches. So I went ahead and just did PPF on that while I had a brand new one. So the rear end, everything's good to go with that. As far as shocks and struts. So first I want to say, if you want a company that has amazing customer service, that's the place to go, Steeda. So after finally getting the car fixed and kind of really getting to work with the suspension, I was pretty, at first, unhappy with how it rode. It was actually a lot worse than my PP1 setup. So I worked with an engineer over at Steeda for probably a good month or so, trying to figure things out, what was going on. So the first thing they did was send me new bump stops to try the bump stops, which unfortunately meant taking everything off again, putting those on. Didn't quite do the trick. So based on what I was getting a lot of bouncing on the rear end. It really kind of felt like a trampoline going on. So what we did was we measured from the center of the wheel here up to the fender. And basically that measurement was too low, meaning that the car was not actually, the back end was just sitting too low, and it wasn't being able to properly go off those bump stops. So what we did is I got a new set of, they're still the Sport Progressives, but we put some new springs on the rear with a 5mm spacer to get this distance from here to the fender correctly, which you want to be above 14 inches. Now I was at like 13 3/4. So I think I'm now at like, I don't know, 14 1/8, 14 1/4, something like that. And that made a huge difference. Really, that completely changed the back end feel of it. Now for the front, I was still getting a little clunking, and it was still a little abrupt. So to fix that, what we did was, on the bump stops they sent me, I didn't have to take anything apart. I just had to take the wheel off, which I don't know if I still have them. Cut off like, I don't know, 1/2 inch of each one. So the bump stop sits on the strut like this. So I just cut off a little piece. You were able to get a knife through the spring. So that wasn't really bad. And between the springs and all the bump stop stuff, I'm really happy with the suspension. I'm really happy with where it's sitting. With that being said, between taking, springs and shocks and struts off so many times, I wanted to get an alignment, so I went to go get an alignment, and I had too much camber in the front, so I actually need camber bolts. So those are ordered. I'll put it in the camber bolts, and I actually have new wheels and tires coming. So I'm kind of running my quote-unquote winter setup to get me through in the meantime. So that's where we're sitting. Happy with the suspension, more than thrilled and impressed with Steeda's customer service throughout all of it. So, they definitely didn't have to stand by and do what they did. Yes, they they need to stand behind their product. But in the end, they went way above and beyond. So I really appreciate that, and a big shout out to Steeda. And when I got my camber bolts, I picked up a bunch of Steeda gear, and I'll definitely heavily be utilizing them for future parts because of that. So that's where we sit. A lot has happened in the last 2 months for some mods with the cars. I mentioned some wheels. There may have been some stuff with the headlights. You're going to have to wait for a future video on that. I just wanted to be able to close up this video you just watched of the install of the shocks and struts and all of that. So I hope everyone is staying safe and doing well during COVID and all this craziness. And I hope your summer car summer didn't totally get ruined by COVID. But you know, we always have next year and all winter to plan new mods. So I appreciate it, guys. Take care. Peace out.